The e-pharmacy space has been under government scrutiny for some time now, and reports suggest Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya will soon meet with top players in the space, even as concerns grow over data privacy of patients, irrational use of prescription drugs, drug resistance and predatory pricing. For some context, the number of e-pharmacies in the Indian market has just exploded over the last few years. There are currently 50 plus startups in the space providing medication to 50 lakh users per month. But concerns have also been growing. In February this year, for example, the CDSCO sent notices to top 20 e-pharmacies. I'm going across first to my colleague Samir, who's giving us details on the latest round of meetings between government and the industry.
The government is not in favor of e-pharmacy and quite strict on this particular issue. What we are getting to know from our health ministry sources that Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya is soon going to chair an important meeting on the issue of e-pharmacy with the sector's representative, with the e-pharmacy company owners and other stakeholders. And it is very likely that this will be discussed in the sense that Centre will convey that why they are not in favor of e-pharmacy. We are also getting to know from sources that Centre has a stand that they want to promote e-prescription, which is there in Western countries as well. E-prescription could be promoted, but not the e-pharmacy. One of the viewpoint is also there in the government that currently, if you see the retail pharmacy segment, which has more than 10 lakh numbers, so currently e-pharmacy, if it impacts even 10% of its, even 20% of its, this may lead to monopoly of e-pharmacy in the near future. And that government does not want that this situation should come in. And this is the reason that government has clearly conveyed to the e-pharmacy sector that they are not going to promote, they are not favoring the e-pharmacy sector. But yes, e-prescription could be promoted in the sense that the doctors, they can give their prescription, the electronic prescription could be taken, and then the medicines could be availed or the drugs could be availed. But encouraging e-pharmacy is not what government is looking at. And in the same direction, an important meeting is going to be chaired by Union Health Minister. We have also seen in the recent past that our notice was being served by the Union Health Ministry to the e-pharmacy stakeholders, to the company owners, and the detailed answers were sought in. And now this meeting is counted as very important step in the same direction.
Thank you for that, Samir. Now to speak more on this, because now the question is, should there be a restriction of e-pharmacy, especially in a country where e-commerce is growing at such a breakneck speed, or is regulation required? And to speak more on this, I'm joined now by Jagannath Shinde, President of the All India Organization of Chemists and Druggists, Murali, Neelakantan, former General Counsel of Cipla, and Dharmil Sheth, co-founder of API Holdings, with me on the show. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us on the India development debate. Mr. Sheth, I want to begin with your take on the issue. Clearly, there are concerns. There will be a meeting and conversation with the government. But has the industry done enough to really address some of those concerns, especially when it comes to data privacy of patients, of antimicrobial resistance and things like that? Do you think there has been a lacune there?
I think we've been actively working with the stakeholders from the government since the last 8 years of our existence. It's been about 8 years that online platforms for pharmacies have been operational. We have addressed the concerns time and again. There have been multiple stakeholder conversations driven by the union government as well. And that is how the draft regulations were released in 2018. And post that, obviously, COVID happened and, e-pharmacies were on the forefront to serve the consumers, and, government had largely and sort of publicly applauded how e-pharmacies stood during those times. I think there are a lot of misconceptions which we are trying to work with the relevant stakeholders to address them, and we'll be happy to do that again. There are sort of misconceptions about how an e-pharmacy operates. It's purely a platform which is actually connecting a local pharmacy with the consumer. If you as a consumer are today calling up a pharmacy or placing an order over WhatsApp, requesting for some medicines, and you're getting home delivery. We're just trying to standardize and organizing that entire space. Using technology, there are multiple benefits that we see in the sector from a regulatory point of view as well. Every invoice, every sale made, every transaction can be tracked and traced and is made against a valid prescription. So all of these points have been addressed in the past as well, and we'll do it again.
So why the concern now then, Mr. Sheth? What has changed? If you're saying that, the role of e-pharmacies during COVID-19 was much appreciated, what do you think has changed? Because there is no doubt that the government right now is concerned. Do you think it's pressure from retailers, from the retail segment or the brick and mortar segment who think that your deep discounts is hurting them?
So I'm not aware about what the concerns are, because the government has not sort of engaged with us yet. We have written for a meeting, for an appointment. Hopefully, we should be able to meet them and understand the concerns and hopefully address them as well. The typical concern is today that the kind of model we have falls under multiple ministries from a governance and regulations point of view. The platform, because it falls under the IT ministry, they are sort of governed by the IT Act. Because the stores which are connected with the platform, they are governed by the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, which falls under the Health Ministry. Because there are two different bodies, sort of involved, there is no one owner of this sector, which is why, we've been requesting as well to sort of release the guidelines that were released, the draft which was released, maybe finalize those and publish them to finalize it. But even otherwise, there is a self-regulatory code of conduct which all the online pharmacies follow. And in case, there are any issues or problems, the stores or the dispensation which happens from the offline pharmacies, which are already governed by the state FDA bodies, they can take action, and there are regulatory sort of norms which can be sort of actioned upon to take any sort of corrective measures or regulatory measures on those things.
All right.
So, it's just about having a common guideline which will define e-pharmacy as a platform, because today, the word is loosely being misconceived or misrepresented as something which is illegal, but it is not. It is purely a platform which is connecting a pharmacy which is already licensed.
Okay, let me get Mr. Shinde in. So they are an aggregator, like an Ola, Uber or Zomato or Swiggy, but for medicines. So what is the concern?
No, madam, nowadays, see, this is all online players are illegally working. The draft which he said is not yet approved. Not only that, Honorable Delhi High Court have already given a stay on that. Now the e-prescription, see, I have attended all the meetings. The government could not make the e-pharmacy e-prescription. As a result, it is stopped. And now we find that mostly these people are collecting the health data, which is they are violating the data security, data privacy, and data integrity of the citizens, which they are not supposed to do. Second thing, we have pleaded the government. Now the Honorable Prime Minister brought the National Digital Health Mission, which is covering Ayushman Bharat, which is now covering everything. And where the patient data security, safety, security is already there. And I think this is contradicting the policy of Honorable Prime Minister announced on 2020. So we have, because in this
Mr. Shinde,
online,
what is the problem that no, Mr. Shinde, what is the problem that the All India Organization of Chemists and Druggists have? Data privacy, yes, is an issue. Frankly, it's an issue with any e-commerce in our country right now. You buy anything, I buy a pencil from a website, they have my data. So data privacy issue is there, but it's separate. What is the specific concern that, I would say the traditional pharmacy sector has? Because you can't stop technology beyond a point.
See, ma'am, hello?
I'm listening, sir.
Hello?
Yes, we're listening.
Hello?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
See, the general medical practice is this. The person, whenever he gets sick, he goes to doctor, doctor investigate him, check him, and then prescribe. And the physical prescription go to pharmacies, and then looking at that, the pharmacy issues the medicine. Generally, all our standalone people or offline people, we are not selling medicine. We are selling the medicine which is prescribed by doctors. So here we find that doctor is invisible. Somebody comes on telephone and tells that he is a doctor, and then he gives. And that's why today the misuse of antibiotic, because antibiotic misuse is there, in the microbial resistance have increased, and that all the subject. And even today we find that online all narcotic drugs, abortion drug, pills and other things are easily available to our youth, and nobody knows whether those medicines are pure or impure, and what they are taking nobody knows, and it is not yet recorded and is not recorded. Now today whatever we sell, today we are giving all data to the government of H1N1 drug.
You just said they're recording everything, which is what is invading people's privacy. So is the data there or is it not there?
People, no, they are having their own app, web portal, and they already collect a lot of data, and that has been misused, and the patients are not safe. People are not safe in this. And now those
are some of the concerns the government will look at as well. Yes, those are some of the concerns the government will look at as well. Mr. Neelakantan, I want to understand what the legal position is. Now, this industry is on since the last 8 years. Today, you have a claim that is not even legal. Is there a law in this country right now that allows anyone to sell medicines, drugs online? How are all of these companies, 50 plus startups, operating? Under what law?
As you heard earlier from Mr. Sheth, you can't have one law which covers every activity for every sector. So he's right in saying that there are many laws that govern this sector, and you have to comply with each one of them. So you are not going to have one law which says for e-pharmacies, this will be the story. It just seems too difficult to do. You can't keep on tweaking it as technology improves. So it's just not practical. We haven't done it to Big Basket, Amazon, none of the others. So, e-commerce, if there are regulations, they will apply. The IT ministry will have jurisdiction over it. In this case, the Department of Pharmaceuticals will deal with the actual sale of it. How it is sold, whether it is sold online, on WhatsApp, it's a bit of too much detail. Tomorrow, if you have something beyond WhatsApp and online, then what happens? So I wouldn't go down that path. The legality of it is fairly well understood. I think you have so many of these startups who've taken good legal advice, including discussions with government. And if it was illegal per se, they wouldn't be operating in this country. You wouldn't have so much money being invested.
May I reiterate my question? So when you want to open an e-pharmacy, where do you go? What ministry do you go? Under what law do you go right now? How do you open it?
That's exactly like you asking me, what will you do if you have to, or which law applies to hotels? There are some 100 laws and regulations that apply to opening a restaurant. So there isn't one law that says this is it. So in this case, if you are going to set up an online platform, there are a whole list of rules under the IT Act which deal with online sales. There's e-commerce regulations. There's a whole lot of them there. So if you're talking about privacy, the IT Act deals with that. So that part of it, which is the platform, is regulated. The doctors are regulated. The pharmacies are regulated. So really, you don't need another legislation to say you can now operate a website that provides a marketplace for this. Then you have to ask the question, are you going to do it for tomatoes separately, onions separately, for every other fruit, vegetable, and commodity separately? And the answer is no. We can't go down that path of having specific regulation for each of these things. It just doesn't make sense. Could I make 2 points in response to Mr. Shinde? One, that we have corporate chains of pharmacies now, and they're recording information. As much information as the website or an app is going to do, which is going to be an e-commerce or e-pharmacy. So that concern doesn't exist anymore. Data is already collected. Secondly, There is a prescription record. Now it is with the pharmacies which give them and sell them virtually. That data is being sold to pharma companies. Same thing is going to happen with online pharmacy. So we haven't created any new problem. And if the question is mis-selling, we have more mis-selling now because it's untraceable. So you have a lot of abuse. Everything that he talks about, there's a lot of abuse now because it's completely untraceable. And there is a third problem. The antimicrobial resistance is because pharmacists generally are happy to dispense without a prescription. Now, you can walk into a pharmacy today and get as many antibiotics as you want, pain relief as you want without a prescription. So it's very easy for anyone to say there is a problem, accept there is a problem. It is caused by the pharmacist. This will not make it worse. It will probably make it better because my experience of the online e-commerce space is that you have to produce a prescription.
Right.
It is actually verified.
You have to upload
and
it. Correct.
they have a sense of who's getting it. So in terms of the supply chain, you have an end-to-end data which you can trace. So if you want to recall a drug, you know who all have got it and how much of it. If you think that there is an issue with that drug, you can do it. If you want to have surveillance, which is it causing side effects? For new drugs, we have post-marketing surveillance. This will give you that data. So it's very easy to say there are all these problems, but I can't find in Mr. Shinde's speech anything to say that it will
question? I have asked this to all the panelists. Now,
the
Mr.
real question is,
Neelakantan,
okay, so
I'll come to you. What is the fight actually about? I have alluded. I'll tell you what I think it's about, and then you tell me if I'm wrong. I think it's about the deep discounts these e-pharmacies are giving, and they are not matched by the traditional pharmacists. It's luring away customers, and that's part of the problem.
Okay, why are they able to give discounts? Let's understand the pricing model. Between the distributor and the retailer, the margin in some cases is 50% of the retail price. That is the margin available to the retailer and the distributor. Their costs are not that much. Let me give you a simple example. When you send something by courier, the value of that service is not dependent on the price of the commodity, correct? When you pay the toll, it is not based on what the price of your car is. You get an airline seat, it's not based on my net worth. So why should the distributors and the retailer get a percentage of the retail price? Elsewhere in the world, it is only a price of a prescription, the dispensing of the prescription. In the UK, it is £9. Doesn't matter what the value is. So there is a huge amount of profit sitting with the distributor and the retailer. That is the profit being transferred by the e-commerce players to say, listen, we can actually charge much lesser and make a smaller profit. So that's one problem. The second problem is that Mr. Shinde's organization controls all distribution, which means that if a pharmaceutical company wants to introduce a drug, basically the AIOCD holds them hostage. So you've got to pay and do whatever it is. They will decide how much will be sold. They will decide where it will be sold, in which markets it will be sold, by which retailers it will be sold. So that stranglehold that they have on the market, and India is a large country, it's not one market. That is what the e-pharmacy players are trying to break, is that they can then decide what to push and people will have more choice. So you have to understand the economics of where the profit lies and what amount of control they have over this. They basically hold pharma companies hostage.
Mr. Shinde, would you like to respond?
See, madam, these people are burning the capital. They want to take the market share of medicine in India. And, he doesn't know the DPCO is there right from 1965. In our control category, drugs are being controlled by NPPA, National Pharmaceutical Authority, which gives us only 8 and 16% margin on control category and 10 and 20% margin on decontrol category. Now, how come the retailer can pay 25%, 30%? Because in our country, the entire price is controlled by government since 1965. And they are giving. This is not a fair competition. Other day, we have asked the Mr. Vinod Kumar Paul, you free us from DPCO and let us fight with them, because if market is, if we get a level competition on equal platform, then we can also take a huge margin and give it to consumer. So here they are burning capital and killing us. Whereas today, even we find that all the spurious substandard drugs without any prescription is going. He is telling that pharmacies are selling medicine. But today,
But Mr. Shinde,
these all
can I tell you a fact which our viewers will also
Let
agree?
me just make a point here.
I'm coming to you, Dharmil.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about this point about, and this is anecdotal. Everyone has experienced it. You go to your local pharmacy and you say कि गला थोड़ा खराब है, कुछ दे दो, and something will come across the counter without a prescription. This happens everywhere, and that's a fact. Everybody who's watching this show knows it. Everyone on this panel knows it. I just wanted to make that point. Yes, Mr. Sheth.
So, that extending that very point, today e-pharmacies would be about 3% of the industry. 97% is still where people walk into a store or call up a store and get home delivery, right? You look at, how, you can walk down to a doctor today, get a prescription. It's an industry problem that the doctors don't check your Aadhaar card, right? You can walk down to a clinic, doctors will give you a prescription. You walk down to a store, no one will ask you for a prescription. Online platforms can give you an audit, and we are happy to do that for the regulators. For every medicine sold, we can actually give you the prescription copy and the doctor who's prescribed the drugs, also the customer details about it. If the regulators want to verify, validate, do an audit, can the offline pharmacies do that? Fundamentally, the infrastructure of the country is such that, we can't do that. We don't have that system in place. And if you want, to have 100% compliance and, how systems should work, then we will have to focus on 97% of the industry first. 3% is so small. What impact?
What about my data? What about my data? One of the charges that Mr. Shinde made is that my data on any of these apps is now fodder for pharmaceutical companies, for actually anyone to sell me anything based on my medical history.
It's absolutely baseless. We are compliant with the IT Act. Whatever compliances have to be withheld, there are systemic algorithms in place. There are servers in place. There are encrypted data in place, which no one can leak, no one can hack, no one can sell. No personal private data is being used or sold or done anything with. That is not something that the online platforms get into. What are the regulations around it in the offline space today? Let's ask the question about the industry. When we are talking about problems, we should talk about the entire industry. Whether be it online or offline, channels are irrelevant. If there is a problem, let's talk about how do we solve that problem for both the channels, right? If Mr. Shinde is saying that, without prescriptions, sales are happening, then let's look at it. We can give you every prescription for every sale that has been made on the platform. And it is not that we are selling it as a platform. It is the offline pharmacies who are doing the sales.
Okay. I need to wrap.
I can show you.
I need to wrap very quickly. I actually I wish we could speak more because this is a very interesting topic. I have time for one question, and I'm going to take it to Murali to ask now. Government is getting into this. What do you see happening here? We need clarity on regulation, and this is sort of a wave that you can't stop. You're not going to be able to stop e-commerce on anything, including in medication.
Absolutely. And the government's national health stack, all of these projects that it has, will only work if everybody can be online and if there can be seamless data exchange. So it can happen without the e-commerce players, but it'll happen much quicker and much better because of the investments they're making. Now, there are a lot of these issues. When he says the data is not used, my own personal experience is when you go onto these websites or apps and use it, they want to sell you something else. So because you bought X before, they want to sell you Y now. So they are using it, perhaps not to sell me financial services products, but they're using it for selling their own stuff. But the government actually, my reading of it is that is encouraging it. They have done nothing to stop it. They could have stopped it. They could have issued a notification and said, all this ends now. They haven't done it for 8 years. Even when the matter was placed in the Delhi High Court, they haven't done it. Mm-hmm. The regulations, the new draft regulations on the Drugs and Cosmetics Act and the Medical Devices Act 2020 also thinks of this as a possibility. So whatever may be in the press and whatever it is that your reporters may have heard, I think this is something that can't be rolled back. It is no one's interest to roll it back. It doesn't cause any new
Regulation
problem.
will not harm, though. Data privacy is an important issue. Just because some companies may be doing it well doesn't mean everyone will be. And is eventually the patient needs to be protected and have access to drugs at the best possible price. So we'll track this story more closely, but I want to thank all of you for joining us on today's discussion. Thank you so much.